What's going on, guys? Tower number 9 here, and today we're going to do a Star Wars Unlimited tier list, and I think it's going to be interesting to take a look at this. We are going to be doing it a little differently. So in the past, I was saying that S tier should only be for like the highest, most broken, if you're not playing this, you're wrong type leaders. Star Wars Unlimited still doesn't have any leaders that are like that, but because there are so many and there are more gradations now available, we are going to actually use the S tier for the top of the top, but that's not to say that only the S tier is valid. Other leaders can be good too. I just want to have more space to make like fine gradations in the tiers. So that being said, let's get into it. So Kira here. Kira is going to be our first entry into the S tier. Kira is a leader that has she's probably been the most successful of any of the set 2 leaders at this point, and she's been basically used in builds that are similar to the Director Krennic blue-green villain soft control, but with some new spins on it, and I think she has proven quite strong in that area. She has a little bit better fighting capability than Krennic. I know Krennic has 7 HP and Kira in practice only has 4, but the fact that she does that damage when she flips and then comes in as essentially a 4/4 means that she can remove most leaders in the game immediately, which is very nice to have. She's also much stronger with an overwhelming barrage than Krennic, since Krennic comes in on strength 2 and Kira at strength 4. Being able to barrage for 6 against a weakened enemy board is a lot better than being able to barrage for 4. Overall, I think there are some downsides. You know, she doesn't have the same healing that Krennic or Iden have to offer, but I think that at least right now she's been doing very well competitively, and I'm going to put her in the S tier. Krennic, who I was just discussing, is going to be in the A tier. He is a strong leader in the right situation. He was kind of the premier blue-green villain aggro choice in set 1 of Star Wars Unlimited TCG, but I think that Kira does that better now, and that doesn't mean that Krennic isn't viable, but I do think he's a step behind Kira right now, at least with what's going on in the meta as a whole. Now, I do think he has some advantages. In particular, the fact that he has healing to offer means that, in my opinion, he can be a bit more resilient against some of the quite fast aggro decks compared to Kira. And I know some Kira players have been on 30 HP base instead of Energy Conversion Lab in order to try to mitigate that. But, Krennic has a few other things going for him. He's Imperial if you have Imperial synergy stuff. He's an official, which means that Emperor's Royal Guard is a sentinel if he's on the field. And he does also have a few specific interactions where his ability means you hit a key breakpoint. So, for instance, if you ambush, if you're playing against Yellow Sabine and you ECL ambush Consortium Star Viper into an A-Wing or an X-Wing or whatever, it then ends up being a strength 4 unit because it gets buffed by Krennic's ability, which means that it does well against the Falcon or the Aztec Liberator gunship. That's a very specific interaction, but at one time it was very relevant. However, I think that these days that isn't quite as important because the Sabine players have been heavily shifting towards green. Green was probably already the most popular Sabine build, but the importance of that particular interaction has, in my opinion, diminished somewhat. Anyway, I'm going to put Krennic in the A tier. I think Krennic is strong, but I don't think that he is the current competitive player's choice relative to Kira. Now, that doesn't mean you can't win an event with Krennic. You might even be able to find a better version for a specific meta or environment with Krennic, but right now Kira is playing a similar deck and doing better. So Kira is S, Krennic is A, and I need to start reviewing these faster. We're going to be here all night. Okay, Gar Saxon, we're going to put him in the... It's B or C, really, with this guy, and I think I'm going to put him in the B tier. So Gar Saxon is a leader who has an ability that gives an incremental advantage with the +1 power for upgraded units. In the right situation, especially with shielded units and various cheap upgrades like Snapshot Reflexes, he can be quite good, but he is a 6 deploy leader, which currently don't seem to be doing all that well. A 6 deploy 4/7 leader is just not really all that exciting in terms of direct stats. And while I do think he can get some good value, he doesn't have that like extra push to really bring him to the top, at least from what I've seen thus far. I do think he suffers a bit also from the Mandalorian synergy ending up a little weak. But you know, we'll have to see. I think it's quite possible he could be strong in the right situation. We get some more good upgrades and so on, and or maybe just a build people haven't experimented with. Next up, we have Iden Versio. So Iden was a top tier leader when the game released, and so I would say that at the very release of the game, the top 3 leaders would be Iden, Sabine, and Boba, with Sabine being the best aggro, Boba the best mid-range, Iden the best control. However, I think that as things developed, Iden became somewhat less the star of the show. I think that we saw other control decks that did not, like Iden control was still a thing. There was the aggression Iden, the double blue Iden. Both of those got some results in the set 1 meta, but recently I think Iden has been increasingly overshadowed. So I think I'm gonna put her in the B tier. I don't think it is invalid to play Iden. She can generate a lot of healing, even more than Krennic, and she has better personal fighting stats than Krennic, but the fact that she deploys on 6 is a little unfortunate. And when you compare to Kira seems more able to deploy and deal with those opposing leaders. Iden feels a bit crowded out by Krennic and Kira at present, but I could be wrong. I haven't been testing Iden recently. Maybe there's a great build waiting, but for now we're going to put her in the B tier. Finn. I like the character Finn in the films. I don't like the character Finn in the game. His ability is very, very specific. Yes, it can generate some value, but it's, I don't know, like you don't really want to be defeating your own upgrades a lot of the time. There's a potential engine you can do with Finn and Rose where you can use Finn to get something a shield, and Rose can convert that into 2 experience, and then, you know, Finn can convert it into a shield, and you still have 1 of the experience, and then Rose can convert the shield into 2 experience, and I have 3 experience. But it's just like, it's kind of slow. Like, yes, it's really good in principle if you get to keep doing that, but like, are you going to get to keep doing that? I'm really not sure. Finn is going to be in the D tier, unfortunately. I don't think right now that he has a real place in competitive play. It's possible that someone has figured something out, but I'm skeptical. Sorry, Finn. I think you're real cool in the films, but I'm not a fan in the game. And I will also say this is a constructed tier list. This is not a draft tier list. Draft tiering is quite different. And we're going to see that when we get to our very last leader, Jyn Erso. But I got to get through a bunch of these other ones, and I got to start going faster, like I was saying earlier. Chewie. All right, Chewie. Kind of tempted to put him down here with Finn. I think he's a little better than that. I'll put Chewie in the C tier. So Chewie right now suffers from being a late game oriented leader in heroism. Heroism tends to do better in the earlier game, and villainy tends to do better in the late game. So typically aggro decks are more likely to be heroism, and control decks are more likely to be villainy. Chewie does have an interesting ability, and as we're seeing more Wookiee synergy cards, there's more potential there for stuff to be cool. But as it stands, he's quite slow. He's not that strong when he comes out. He relies on taking damage to power up his grit, which is to some degree opponent's choice in a lot of situations. Overall, I don't think he's the strongest leader, but you know, maybe they'll print enough Wookiee synergy that he'll be a menace. Next up, we have Rey. So Rey was like, so probably the first really cool new deck from Shadows of the Galaxy was the Rey Red deck, which I think is a solid deck. But she hasn't had huge competitive success at this time. I do think she's quite strong. One of the stronger Shadows of the Galaxy leaders. I'm gonna put her in the A tier right now, not the S tier. I think if I were ranking what are the best new leaders earlier on in the set, I would put her higher, but she just hasn't had like the big results from events or whatever that I would want to send her up to S. Next we have Chirrut. Chirrut's going to be B tier, I think. So for me, Chirrut is really cool and unique, and I've played him and had a lot of fun with him. I think he's solid. I think I've done well in local tournaments and stuff with him. But that's just sort of the weekly play type level. And I do think there is a big obstacle to him now, which is Rivals Fall. So I know this is a somewhat controversial card, but the hero Voltron plan does not work very well into Rivals Fall. In principle, you could counter with something like Regional Governor, but the other thing is that Raid is a similar style of deck, maybe more effectively. I don't know. For me, Chirrut's B tier. He does something cool. He does something fun. I like the deck, but I don't think it's quite at the same level. Next up, we have Hondo. So Hondo is not a very commonly played leader, but that doesn't mean he's bad. I know that George has been playing Hondo actually with some good results, and I think Hondo's like fundamental ability is quite strong if you have good smuggle cards with it. But I'm not at this point going to put him in the A tier. I'm sorry, George. I'm gonna leave Hondo in the B tier here. I think he is a cool leader. I'm fond of Smuggle. It's probably my favorite of the new mechanics that we got with Shadows of the Galaxy. But it hasn't been something that's been really ripping it up. Next up we have Luke. Luke was quite good in early play, but he feels increasingly overshadowed now. It's really B or C tier for me with Luke. Generating those shields can be good, but I don't know. I look at Luke and I look at Rey, and Rey seems to have a similar ability where you generate a token, but Rey's experience stuff seems better. Rey's leader side is arguably more impactful with her large amount of restore. I don't know. Luke's leader side is pretty, I'm going to put Luke in B tier, but towards the bottom of B tier. I'm not saying Luke is bad, but the Luke Red and Luke Green type builds don't seem to have the same force that they did early on. And, we'll see where things go from there. Next up, we have Jabba the Hutt. Jabba's a leader that has not seen a huge amount of play. I think he's better than people think. I'm going to actually put him in the B tier, believe it or not. So there you have Jabba the Hutt up there. I think there's some stuff with him with Red in particular that is actually pretty cool. But he's not at the same level as some others. Also, I'm going to move Gar Saxon back a bit in this tier. I don't know where, let's put Jabba above. Yeah, we'll do something like that. Whatever. These aren't like super definitive placements, but I'm more enthusiastic about this side of the tier than that side of the tier. Emperor Palpatine is in a certain sense the like ultimate endgame leader. He can be really, really strong if the game goes long, and that's a big if. So I don't know about bottom of A or top of B, but Palpatine has this really big problem, and that problem is named aggro decks and Sabine Wren, and Boba decks are also sometimes just too fast for him, and that's enough of an issue. We're gonna put him towards the top of B. Arguably, he should be in the bottom of A. He is really good when he gets to do his game plan, but he is not really good when he's getting overwhelmed by small units. So, yeah, we're gonna put Palpatine at the top of B right now. He's a cool leader, but he really struggles with the more aggro builds. Moff Gideon, we're going to put Moff Gideon at the top of C tier. Or actually, no, we're not. We're going to put him below. I'm now so I was saying C tier, but I honestly think he might be D tier. Yeah, sorry, Moff Gideon, you're a cool character in the show. We're going to put Moff Gideon in D tier. So Moff Gideon has a cool ability, but he's all over the place. His ability rewards you for playing small units, but then it's oriented towards unit combat. If you're trying to swarm the opponent with small units, that's usually in service of a strategy that's actually not aiming for a bunch of unit combat. It's aiming for a more aggro thing, but his ability, there's just the anti-synergy there. It's quite annoying. But you know what? We're gonna bump him up to C tier because this is a set about about tokens. Maybe his ability is gonna shine with those battle droids. We'll have to see. But we're gonna give him a temporary bump. If we're just right now, I'd probably put him in D tier. But with Twilight on the horizon, we'll put him in C. I think. Not super loving it, but yeah. Grand Moff Tarkin. Grand Moff Tarkin's a really interesting leader. So Tarkin Yellow has been a somewhat popular build. You can be really annoying with space units, especially that Lurking TIE Phantom, buff it up, or Cloaking TIE Phantom, or whatever it's called. Tarkin's personal stats aren't really good. If you don't have other units on the board, he's not exciting, but he... I think he's B tier. We'll put him in the B tier. He works well enough when his game plan is working that I think the B tier is appropriate for Tarkin. He is also like A tier in draft, but draft is a different format. Boba Fett heroism version is going to be, we'll put him also in the B tier, but maybe further towards the bottom. Boba Fett is a leader that is interesting. He has some cool synergy. So he's another one of these like situational get extra stats type things, which is a little incrementalist. But he works really well with ambush units in particular, and ambush is quite good. I think he's another one that might be stronger in draft than he is in constructed to some degree. But I don't know. You can play Boba's armor on him. You can ambush people with Han unit and hit them for 7 with this ability, which is a crucial breakpoint for killing a bunch of leaders. I don't know. We'll say, we're gonna put Boba in the B tier. Hera Syndulla. Hera Syndulla is D tier. I'm sorry. So Hera, one of the more fun theme decks in the game. There just aren't that many Spectres, and Hera's leader card is really bad. I do probably put her above Finn, but like, she's really not that strong. Hunter. We're gonna put Hunter in C tier. Hunter's ability is going to get better as the game goes on, and we see more characters that have the same names, and it's also going to get better as we see more clones and clone synergy cards. But this type of spend 1 to draw a card under a certain circumstance type leader is not amazing. And he also is slow. And as I was saying with Chewie, heroism isn't that good at playing a slow game right now. Overall, I'm skeptical of Hunter. We're going to put him in the C tier. I don't think he's as bad as Hera or Finn, but I do think he's not where we want to be. Leia is actually also going to be in the C tier. And that's another one of these Leia is in the C tier for now. Leia's in the C tier for now because we are not seeing a lot more Rebel units, and the ones that we have just do not seem to be enough to make Leia a stronger leader than Sabine. Or, honestly, I don't even think Leia is the second aggro deck anymore. Like, at one time I would say, Sabine's the top aggro deck, and Leia is the second best aggro deck. But at this point, I think Kylo is probably actually a better second best aggro deck than Leia is. So we're going to put Leia in C tier right now. Arguably, she deserves to be in B tier. But we're also not going to see a bunch more Rebels for this set, Twilight of the Republic, because it is a Clone Wars focused set. I mean, maybe we'll probably see a Rebel unit or two, but with the current emphasis of the game not being on that original Rebel Imperial conflict, I think that leaders like Leia are not as likely to shine as in the past. We'll have to see, but yeah, it's interesting. No green leaders made the ARS tier. It's one of those things. Next up, we have Bosk. I'm going to be a little daring, a little controversial. I'm going to actually put Bosk in the A tier. Bosk is quite good. Bosk is not being hugely played right now, but you can play like a Bosk yellow aggro, I think is quite good. I think that a Bosk blue is an interesting new control deck that people have been playing. I think it had some event results recently that made people pay attention, and I think that it's quite possible that there's going to be other stuff with Bosk that ends up working out. Bosk green, Bosk yellow, Bosk blue all seem reasonable. I'm not sure I'd want to play double red Bosk, but you know, he has a nice kind of aggro type of profile. His ability can get a lot of extra value out of bounties, and the potential to score a double bounty while he's deployed can be just a massive swing in the game. Like if you do a bounty hunter's quarry and get 2 units, or you know, you heal for 10, or you draw 4 cards, there's just a lot of things he can do that are kind of crazy with that. And like, yeah, the opponent can prevent it, yeah, the opponent can play upgrade removal, but at least right now Bosk seems to be kind of a rising star in my opinion. I'm gonna currently put him in the A tier, and I'm actually gonna even put him a little bit above Ray. So you know, Bosk is, I think, one to watch. Vader. Vader's going to be in the B tier for me. I don't think Vader's bad, but I think Vader, kind of like Luke, has been in, and we're going to actually bump him back a bit in the tier. Like Luke, Vader feels like he's a little eclipsed by some of the other leaders and strategies that have been coming out. I don't know. There are some cool things he can do with like a ramp oriented build. He's less likely to waste additional ramp pieces compared to leaders that come out earlier, but he is pretty slow, and his ping damage is good sometimes. But like, if I wanted to do a deck that was really focused on ping damage, I would probably actually play Cad Bane at this point. Not saying Vader is out of the game, but right now I wouldn't say that he's a top deck in my opinion. Next up, we have Kylo. Kylo is actually also going to be in the B tier for me. So Kylo can be very, very aggressive. Kylo is actually faster than Sabine, in my opinion. And I had a video earlier where I went over some Kylo builds to showcase this. But the problem with Kylo is that he's not resilient. He doesn't have as much reach as Sabine. And because his strategy lends itself to dumping your hand, you can end up in these situations where if the opponent stabilizes, you just don't have a lot of outs. And as a result of that, Kylo's gonna end up in the B tier for me. I don't think that he is. I don't think he's unplayable. I think he can actually be a very fast and threatening aggro deck, but I do think he has some distinct problems right now, and we'll see what the future holds for him. Grand Inquisitor. B or C. Grand Inquisitor has an interesting combo playstyle. His stats are unfortunately horrible for his cost. His stats would be bad if he were a 5 cost. They're especially bad at 6 cost. But he can enable these crazy combos. He's probably the most combo-oriented leader that we have in the game, but combo just hasn't really shown up as an archetype in this game yet. He did get a lot of units that are good for him with Shadows of the Galaxy, but at the same time, I haven't really been seeing him taking games over or whatever with those new tricks. I haven't really tested it myself, though. I've been playing other decks. I have not been trying to break open the Grand Inquisitor combos and really come up with something wild. I could maybe see some world where like there's a really good deck with him that just hasn't been figured out yet. But his leader side, his stats are just so bad. His ability is heavily combo oriented. We're gonna, I don't know. We'll be generous. We'll put him toward the bottom of B. I'm more excited about Grand Inquisitor than I am about Leia, which is a very surprising thing to say given where those leaders were in set 1, but that's where we're at for now. Next up, Bo-Katan Kryze. Bo-Katan is kind of the new Hera in terms of being a leader that's really popular and that plays a theme deck, but the theme deck is just not really that good because the trait synergy isn't there, in my opinion. But Bo-Katan's better than Hera. We're going to put Bo-Katan in the C tier. She's actually like a pretty relevant mid-range leader. Her ability is very strong, but the Mandalorian synergy just didn't really end up being that good. Like, Darksaber is good, the Armorer can be good, Mandalorian Armor Sword can be good. A bunch of the other Mandalorian cards are just really not good, unfortunately. Like, even if you... Like, there's not enough payoff. There's not, like, a Fleet Lieutenant for Mandalorians. There's not, like, a Wing Leader for Mandalorians, exactly. There aren't these, like, bread and butter payoff cards that can reliably get you a benefit for playing Mandalorians. Bo-Katan does, of course, have a strong ping ability. But she really struggles into control decks, in my opinion, because first off, her pings aren't all that good against control decks, and then second, she's sort of a mid-range deck that can get into trouble there, and she also doesn't actually even have the best options for fighting aggro decks. She can do it. I'm not saying it's impossible. The ping damage can pick off some aggro units. You have things like the Concord Dawn Interceptors, but she doesn't have a great place right now. I'm in my opinion, and I'm gonna put her in the C tier. I do think she's really fun. I'm gonna have a fun deck Fridays where I go over a Bo-Katan Mandalorians deck. That might actually be this week, but I don't think she's quite. I don't think she's quite there for competitive play, unfortunately. Or if she is, she's with a deck that I haven't figured out yet. It's very possible somebody else is better at deck building than me, but that's where I'm at present. IG88. IG88 is D tier. He is one of the worst leaders in the game, but battle droids are going to come out. Battle droids are going to come out, and it's possible to me that IG88 is going to get buffed. I put Moff Gideon in C tier because of battle droids. I should really put IG88 in C tier if I'm going to because of battle droids if I'm going to do that, but I'm not. I'm actually going to demote Moff Gideon back down to D tier. Sorry, Moff Gideon. We'll see what the future holds, but for right now, I think Moff Gideon's really bad, and I think IG88 is really bad. Yeah, being a leader that deploys on 5 resources and has 4 HP is a bad spot to be in this game. Han Solo new version. New Han Solo is, in my opinion, A tier. He has some cool builds that you can do with him, and you can play Han green. You can play him with yellow stuff. He has some really neat plays. I've even seen. I think Wu was playing double red Han. He has some really neat plays. Just getting cards out faster in exchange for some damage on them can be really strong. And does it make him the best ever? Nah, not necessarily, but I think he's in the A tier. I think he's a competitive choice, and he has some cool options available to him that other leaders do not. Cassian Andor, bottom of C no, he's not D tier. Okay. Cassian Andor in the C tier, along with Hunter, and we'll put them right next to each other. I'm not sure which one's better. I think Cassian's probably a bit better just because he has rebel aggro type stuff that goes better with his overall timing. But Cassian and Hunter are friends in the conditional pay 1 to draw a card category, and the conditional pay 1 to draw a card category is not a spot where you want to be in the game right now. Cassian also deploys at 6 and doesn't have a 4/7 stat line. He's a 4/6. He does have some cool things. Saboteur is nice. It's really good against Iden, and the card draw can help refill your hand, but the leader card itself is not good enough in my opinion, and card draw is situational enough in this game compared to other games that I'm not very excited about Cassian right now either. Cad Bane. Cad Bane to me is going to be a B tier leader, but a relatively high B tier leader. He has a ping damage focus that can sometimes be really good, but it's matchup dependent. He has synergy with underworld cards, and there are a lot of good underworld cards, but he is a bit overshadowed by his bounty hunter compatriot Boba Fett when it comes to cunning villain leaders. And we'll see what happens. Cad Bane Red can be really annoying with Tarkin Town. The ping damage can be quite a problem for some builds to deal with, but there's also matchups where it just doesn't matter very much, and so there's some inconsistency there. And his leader deployment is decent, but it's not amazing. So ultimately, we're going to put him in the B tier. Sabine Wren. Sabine is, of course, in the S tier. Sabine is one of the best leaders in the game. Sabine has been one of the best leaders in the game since before the game even came out. She is the premier aggro leader in the game, and she is also more relevant in mid-range now with the newer Sabine Green builds than she was in the past. I think Sabine is still the best aggro deck overall, though interestingly, I have heard some discussion that perhaps Sabine actually needs to play as a mid-range deck and play the control role when she's playing against double yellow Boba, which is not a true aggro deck, but is an aggro tempo deck and has really good tools for winning aggro races. I believe I heard that. I think I heard that from KTOD. So shout out to KTOD. I don't remember who exactly made that recommendation. It might have been Chrono, who I know plays a lot of Sabine, but I could be wrong. My apologies if I misremember that. I think Sabine, and I know there was also some discussion of that on the recent Blonde Sabine Twitch stream. So shout out to that channel for showing some cool Sabine stuff as well. But yeah, Sabine's great. She's really, really, really good. She's now tied for the fastest leader deployment along with Kylo and Lando. But her ability is great. Dealing damage to the bases as a leader is a good way to get closer to a win with aggro, and also gives you some reach. On her leader side doesn't have amazing stats, but the fact that it deploys fast and puts pressure on the base very quickly is really good. And she's really been shining with some of the new cards. Poe Dameron and Wrecker are great. Darksaber is a bit risky and gets upgrade removal, but it's so good when it lands. And so Sabine Wren has gained a lot actually from the new set, despite being a set 1 leader, and she is very strong. Dr. Aphra. I think Dr. Aphra is really bad. I think she has cool art, but this is not a leader art ranking, or else the tiers would probably be very different. She unfortunately is, I mean, she's just all over the place. It's really weird. She needs more stuff that has like when this is discarded type synergy for her to work, in my opinion. Her ability doesn't work consistently, or her leader side ability that gives you extra stats based on the costs in your discard doesn't work very consistently. She mills herself. So this is not a limited tier list, but I would put her in D tier and limited also, because she self-destructs by milling a lot of the time. Or I don't know about a lot of the time, but in limited, milling is a real threat, and her ability is basically a downside there. She basically just needs more stuff where discarding a card from your deck would be good for her to be good, in my opinion. Right now we haven't quite seen it. She has room to grow. The stuff in your discard pile matters type decks are really solid in my opinion in some other games, but right now Star Wars Unlimited isn't really one of them, so Aphra's in the D tier for me. Boba Fett, obviously Boba Fett's in the S tier. Boba Fett is the original Boba, is in my opinion the most obvious balance error in the game. Now, I want to be very clear that I'm not saying he's totally broken and no other leader is valid. I think he is one of several strong competitive leaders. Boba, Sabine, and Kira, I think, would currently be my S tier. Spoiler alert for the rest of this tier list. And I don't think that Boba is like very clearly the best one there. But Boba's really, really good. He probably has too much stats for cost, or for his deployment timing. He should, in my opinion, Boba should either have worse stats or should deploy on 6 resources or something. But as it stands, he is very, very strong, and he has some really strong personal synergy cards too. Fett's Fire Spray is great. Boba Fett's armor hasn't made the same splash that people were maybe anticipating before the set came out, but it is seeing competitive play. It's just not like a total match dominating card necessarily. Boba Fett is a really strong leader as a whole, and is, in my opinion, if I were to say what's the best leader card in the game, I would not have to hesitate before saying Boba Fett, because I think his extra powerful personal stats, coupled with a very relevant ability and some good synergies and cards that work with him in particular, make him really, really good. I'm not saying that he's necessarily the best deck in the game all the time, but right now I think Boba Yellow is one of the best decks in the game, and I think Boba Fett is almost certainly the best individual leader card in the game, even if the deck isn't necessarily always the best positioned. Okay, Fennec Shand. Fennec Shand is going to be high C tier for me. So she has a problem where her leader side is really bad. She is a 4/4 at 5 resources. That is not a good place to be. She dies very easily. Her ability is actually really good though. You can sometimes get huge value from the ambushes, and when it's lining up and you're hitting people and like getting those ambushes to get value with your unit staying on the board and so on, she can be really cool, but I don't think she does it consistently enough to be stronger than a like high C. Maybe she's a low B, I don't know, but I'm not feeling it right now. And I have played Fennec Red, which is a cool deck. And I saw some people talking about that on the KTOD Discord, and I thought, okay, let's try it out. I think it's a cool deck. I think it's fun, but I don't think Fennec Shand is that good in my opinion. Thrawn also unfortunately is going to be in the C tier. Thrawn is like quite slow. And control isn't always bad, but he also is sort of temporary. Like, he gets to exhaust them for one turn. And his ability to look at the top card of both players' deck can be really cool in theory, but unfortunately, a lot of the cards that would really synergize with it are in heroism. If Thrawn were heroic, he might actually be a lot better because there are a bunch of cards that look at your top card there, but we haven't seen so many of those for villainy, so that side of his ability hasn't been all that good. I don't know if we'll see stuff like that in the future, if that's like a heroism part of the color pie, or the aspect pie, I suppose you'd say. But right now I'm just not very excited about Thrawn overall. Sorry, Thrawn. Cool character in the lore, not necessarily a very cool character in the game. Lando. Lando can in theory be very fast, and he has some tricks with smuggle. Of the two smuggle-oriented leaders, Lando and Hondo, I think Hondo is significantly better. As it stands, I haven't seen stuff out of Lando that makes me understand why I would want to play him instead of playing Sabine. I think that he would need a significantly higher smuggle card pool, and it is not at all clear to me that we're going to get a significantly higher smuggle card pool, at least in the short term, because the new sets are going to be focused on different mechanics. I'm going to put Lando in the C tier as well. Not being a four resource deployment leader is, in my opinion, a good place to be, and he can get some like cool value, but like he deramps you to do it. I don't know. I'm not loving where Lando's at. Original Han is, in my opinion, in the A tier. He was a cool leader in the first set, and he is still a cool leader in the second set. Interestingly, it seems like double yellow Han has become more popular than Han green, maybe. And I think double yellow Han has the tech DJ combo going for it, but also has some other stuff. It's not totally reliant on that one combo. So like, yes, the tech DJ combo is good, but Cunnion's a good card. Bodhi Rook's a good card. There's a bunch of stuff that Han can do, even against people who know how to deal with that combo or who counter it effectively. And I'm going to put him in the A tier as a whole. And then next up we have the Mandalorian. I haven't seen this guy be really good. He doesn't strike me as terrible. He's upgrade focused. There are some good upgrades in the game, but he's also just like kind of one of these mid-rangey heroism leaders where I feel like I don't know that it's the right timing. 4/7 at 6 resources is like, it's not notably bad, but it's not notably good. I'm gonna put Mandalorian in the B tier, which is maybe generous. There's an argument that he should be in the C tier, but it's one of those things. Jyn Erso. Also, okay. Jyn Erso is maybe the best leader in the game in draft. Jyn Erso is not the best leader in the game in constructed. And the real question for me with Jyn is D or C. I'm going to put Jyn in the C tier because I do think she's cool. I have played her in constructed. I have not found her to be as bad as people say. She sometimes enables these situations where your unit stays alive instead of dying, which can be really high value in the right circumstance. But she's not that great. She's... Sorry, Jyn. It's a cool deck. It's a fun deck. It's not that strong a deck, in my opinion. And, we'll see if the future holds stuff for her, but I don't really think the outlook is going to improve a lot. So if you're a big Jyn Erso fan, try and organize some Spark of Rebellion drafts with your friends, because that's where she really shines. And, maybe when that set re-releases, she's going to have the opportunity to shine again in draft play once that second wave comes out. But as it stands, I'm not... reprint wave aside, I'm not sure she's going to be making a big splash anytime soon. In fact, I think it's very likely she won't. Arguably should even be D tier, but I'm going to put her towards the bottom of C, which is maybe generous. But yeah, that's my tier list. So these are just sort of my impressions of the game at present. Feel free to argue with me in the video description below or whatever if you want. One thing I will say is that of the top 3 decks, we have sort of this weird situation. So of the top 3 decks, 2 of them are set 1 leaders, and the third one, Kira, is basically very similar to a set 1 deck. Like, it is not It is a new leader, and some people are playing this on 30 HP base. I know KTOD Maddie was talking about that earlier, I think, as a method to overcome her aggro weakness compared to the blue-green villain control leaders that can heal. But it is really pretty similar to the old blue-green villain control game plan. So the meta right now does strike me as potentially being right for some innovation, because we have sort of just seen these tried and true decks doing pretty well, and we have seen some exciting newer decks like the Bosk Blue build, some of the new Han stuff, George's Hondo. Maybe George's Hondo is going to do well enough as other people pick it up that it's going to be up to the ARS tier in future evaluations. But for now, this is where I would have it. And I will say, some of the classic styles of deck are doing quite well. Maybe it's time to get experimenting with some new deck lists and see if you can build something that'll shake things up. That's going to do it for this one, guys. Thanks to you all for watching, and we'll be back later with some more Star Wars Unlimited content. I will catch you guys later.